Hey guys, and welcome back to stream number seven this year. Yeah, so we're on 7. It's not bad. I don't think I've missed one yet, which I'm quite impressed about. So there's a few things that have happened. So I came up with a name. No one else has given me any suggestions for a name, so I came up with .NET. Anyone out there who's a programmer will know .NET. Most of the news we talk about comes from the net or the internet. It's a bit 90s, the net. I am a product of the 90s. So if you guys have got a better idea for the name, then feel free to let me know in the comments, etc., etc. But until then, it's going to be called .NET, and it's going to be every week. So I'll come up with a new graphic, and it'll be next week. Will be episode 1 .NET. It'll be the official start. Pardon me. So. Apart from that, just kind of what have I been up to? Not a huge amount, actually. Between being at work, looking for another job, didn't get the job I went for, and then trying to carve out some way of protecting my position in my current job. Will be different. I'll have to move along, but that's taken up quite a lot of my time. I have been keeping up to date with the news a little bit, although to be honest, most of the news that's worth reading about is all to do with AMD and Ryzen. I'm kind of getting a bit bored of it now, to be honest. I'm wishing it had been launched by now, so I've been filling my other time up with thinking about what graphics card I'm going to buy. I'm going to be upgrading in the next couple of weeks, maybe beginning of March. So I'm not going to wait for Vega. There's a couple of reasons I'm not going to wait for Vega. The main one is not that my 970s are holding back gaming, etc., etc. It's just connectivity. So currently my 1440p panel is connected via DisplayPort, so it's getting the full 144 Hz. However, because the 970 only has one DisplayPort out, I'm having to run the 4K panel on HDMI, which limits it to 30 Hz, and that's just really getting old now. So I'm actually thinking about getting an RX 480, just because I love that card when I looked at it before. It's got very good connectivity, it's got very good performance. The thing that holds me back from that is the 1440p G-Sync panel. I don't want to give up G-Sync, so maybe a 1060. I'm not sure, but I've been looking at 1070s as well, so that's probably going to happen quite soon, I would have thought. And also, apologies for not getting another video out. On Friday I'd planned to, so I've actually filmed, but then when I went to edit in Premiere Pro, there's an issue with my account, so Adobe have cancelled my account. I don't know why they've done that. I've been paying my subscription fee, so I've tried to reactivate it. I've been in contact with them. It's getting really boring. They basically want me to start a new account. I don't want to, as a matter of principle, really, because I'm like, well, I don't see why you cancelled my account. And there are other stuff. I've got stuff uploaded as well to their cloud space, so I don't want to have to go through all that hassle again, basically. So I might edit the current footage I've got in DaVinci Resolve. I don't really want to do that. It's free. I have it. I use it for color correction, so I could use it for editing as well, but yeah, I just, it would really annoy me if I had to do that, and it would really kind of sort of losing faith in Adobe a little bit. I used to really love them, but now they're starting to piss me off a bit. And that's really it, guys. That is it. So let's get down to the news. So as I said last week, it's all about AMD, it's all about Ryzen. It's still all about AMD and Ryzen. Seems to be the only thing worth reading about at the moment. So more leaked benchmarks and some other things. I'm going to say right now at the start what I said at the end of last week's live stream, which is wait. Read the benchmarks, read the leaked benchmarks, but I mean, at the moment there are loads of leaks coming out and they're all saying slightly different things. So I've just picked two of the more credible ones, in my view anyway. But equally, read these with a pinch of salt, because the NDAs on Ryzen should be up by the 28th. I think I read somewhere the 28th of February NDAs will be up, so it's now the 19th, so it's like literally a week. and you'll actually get benchmarks. Benchmarks you can actually trust. So I would say, yeah, go ahead, read them if you want to, but how much credence you give them is up to you. I'm not particularly putting a huge amount of credence in them. I'm expecting Ryzen to come out and be very competitive, and that's it. That's my expectation. I don't expect it to destroy Skylake or Kaby Lake. If it's there or thereabouts with Broadwell E, I'd be quite happy, because obviously it's a 6 cores plus sort of chipset. There are 4 cores there, and that's when the single threaded component will come into play. But again, we're going to look at these, but remember, I'm not saying these are gospel. Don't take them as gospel, but they're worth reading. So first of all, there's a benchmark. I'm not sure if this is the original benchmark that was leaked a couple of weeks ago about the 8-core 16-thread R7-1800X, which is the equivalent to the 6900K. So let's have a look. You can read through this. So single and multi-threaded benchmarks, yada yada yada. This is quite interesting here though. So they're saying here the CPUs will officially launch on March 2nd and the reviews will go live on March 28th. So 9 days and you're going to get actual reviews, guys. So that's why I'm saying you can read these but take them with a pinch of salt. So yeah, 17 Ryzen SKUs, 8, 6, and 4 core. That's all really cool. Giving in there, right? So here we go into the benchmarks. So blah 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 ID string. So basically what they're saying here is that it is the 8-core 16-thread Ryzen CPU, the base clock of 3.6 gigahertz. The same base clock for AMD's 1800X. So that's why they're thinking it's the 1800X. They're also saying the turbo was disabled for this benchmarking. So that's important. So the fastest this chip's going to run is 3.6 gigahertz. It's not going to turbo up to 4 or beyond that. So it's just basically, I suppose you would call it worst case scenario if you got a Ryzen chip that just wouldn't overclock at all. So here they're saying it is outperforming with turbo disabled the 8-core, 8 cores and 6 of 8 tests. So 8-core chip, I'm assuming they mean 6900K. Let's have a look. Yeah, 6900K. Now, I'm not sure what they're using CPU mark. So I've never found CPU mark to be that reliable when it comes to transferring their benchmarks over to the real world. However, it does let us see the differences between SKUs and CPU architecture. So from that alone, I think this is useful to read. So it basically wins in 6 out of the 8 tests. So compression, yep, wins. Where are we now? Encryption, it's beating the i7-6900K. Floating point math, which is important, it's beating the 6900K. Integer maths, which is also important, it's beating the 6900K by a fair whack in that. Bear in mind though, this 6900K is clocked at 3.2 gigahertz. I'm assuming that the turbo clock is enabled for this, which means that it will actually boost up to 3.7, I think. I can't remember, 3.6, 3.7 top of my head. So it should be a fairly apples to apples comparison in terms of clock speed. So Ryzen's IPC is looking really, really good, as well as the hyperlinking. So physics, this is a bit odd, the physics score. So it's losing out in physics by 400 points, which is a considerable amount. So Adored TV did a really good video about this. Jim over there did a really good video about this, with looking at how memory speeds and things like that can affect your physics score. So I'd advise you all to head over to Adored TV and check that video out. It's really, really interesting. I think he was looking at, I'm sure it's this benchmark, but there's a bit more information about the system that was tested, and they used a really kind of mediocre sort of memory platform for it, and a really mediocre motherboard for it as well, which is why the turboing was disabled from the benchmarks. It's basically using a non what is it? Was it A320 or B320M or something like that? I can't remember the motherboard layout for AMD's AM4 platform off the top of my head yet, but it was a non-overclocking motherboard basically, and it was really slow memory with really poor timing. So he did some testing, and he showed that actually the memory and timings can make a big difference to the physics score. So I wouldn't be worried about the physics score too much, hopefully. And then prime numbers, it's losing out a little bit to that. Again, memory can have a massive effect on that, moving data around quickly. So it's all looking pretty good. Again, I don't really use CPU passmark or CPU mark. I would say what to take away from this benchmark is that on the face of things, Ryzen seems to be at the same clock for clock. Ryzen seems to have pretty much the same, or maybe a slightly faster IPC than Broadwell E. Now, that's really good. It should be faster because Broadwell is an old architecture now, and I'm running a Broadwell E chip, so I'm glad that Ryzen is faster. It should be. How that scales to where it comes up to with Kaby Lake and Skylake, I don't know. But I would assume that it would maybe be 5% slower, something like that. And then depending on how far you can push the clock speeds, you might gain a little bit of performance back. So all in all, really, really good. Considering that, you know, the Ryzen chip, this 1800X, should be launching for $499, and the i7-6900K is $1,099 still. So pretty much the same performance, if not a bit better, for half the price. And also, if AMD's chipset pricing is anything to go by, those X370 motherboards, or 370X motherboards, whatever they are, top of the line chipset for AM4, they're going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than X99 or X299 boards. I mean, Intel has always charged a lot for a chipset, so bear that in mind as well. And then they go on here to say that at 3.6 gigahertz, the IPC is 4% higher than Broadwell E on single threaded, which is quite impressive, really. 6900K. Where are we? Do they have another 6800? Oh, whoa. Poor old FX chip there is getting absolutely tanked at 4.2. So basically, just another really positive article. This is on WCCF Tech. They're quite impressed with WCCF Tech at the moment. They've still got the odd kind of puff piece where you just think there's no way that can be the case. But in general, I think the reporting's actually gotten a hell of a lot better, and a lot of the things they're reporting on, I've noticed in the past sort of 6 or 7 months, have been more reliable. So I think maybe they're starting to become a website I use a bit more. I mean, you've still, like I say, you've still got to kind of shift through the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, because there is still a lot of BS on the site, like there is on all sites. I mean, the only one I think where you kind of get away from that as an Antec is very, very good, very reliable. So anyway, that's the 8-core 16-thread chip. So now we're going to have a look at the chip that I'm more interested in, which is the R5 1600X, which is 6 cores, 12 threads. I really wish AMD would do something about this nomenclature. I do not like the naming of this CPU lineup at all. I'm sure it'll make sense to me at some point, but at the moment it doesn't. So here we go. So again, this is on WCCF Tech. Like I said, I'm starting to really rate this website. So basically this is AMD Ryzen 1600X, $260 for this 6-core chip. That is amazing benchmarks, and it's matching Intel's $430 i7-6800K. It's really good. I'm running a 6800K. I'm interested in the 1600X, so it'd be interesting to see what the pricing of that, what that $260 translates to in Britain, because the R7 1800X is listed at $499 in America, and in Britain is listed at £370. So the pricing seems to scale with currency, which is very, very good. I mean, you never see that with Intel. It was $1,000 in America, it's £1,000 in Britain. So we've always kind of felt that maybe we're getting a bit ripped off. But hopefully AMD aren't going to do that. They certainly haven't done it with the top-of-the-line Ryzen chip. So interesting to see what they charge for this. I mean, $260, what's $260 in pounds? Like maybe £200 for a 6-core 12-thread CPU. I'd buy it. I would happily buy that. I wouldn't get rid of my 6800K. I love my 6800K, but I would keep. I would have another 6-core 12-thread machine. I think that's the sweet spot. Gives you a little bit more horsepower than the 4 cores, 8 threads, but you don't get penalized on the price point quite so much. So let's get into this. So, Bob, what are they talking about? So yeah, 6 core, 12 thread, 1600X, 95 watt Black Edition processor. Glad to see they're sticking with that. I always liked that Black Edition naming, was quite nice. It's got a base clock of 3.3 and a turbo clock of 3.7. Due to be launched on March 2nd at $259. Those clock speeds are a bit conservative. Although having said that, they're in the same range as my 6800K, and it looks like, by all accounts, Ryzen should be, I would think, a better, it would be hard to be a worse overclocker than Broadwell E. Although, I did manage to get my 6800K up to 4.5 gigahertz at 1.35 volt, stable all the time. It will go to 4.7 actually. I've done some more testing. This thing will boot at 4.7, but you can't play games. You can video edit and things like that, but it will not game at 4.7, which is a bit disappointing. But still, that's why I'm kind of. I think I just got lucky with my Broadwell chip. I don't think Broadwell E is a fantastic platform for overclocking, but I certainly seem to have won the silicon lottery in terms of voltages and clock speeds compared to what I've read online. So let's get into this. So so I was going to mention this. I was actually going to pull this up. There was a really dodgy Cinebench kind of benchmark up for this chip a few days ago, and it just, I don't know, there was just something about it that didn't seem right. I can't be bothered finding it now, but it just had a really low score for a 6-core chip. Like, the multi-threaded score was very poor, and the single-threaded performance was absolutely garbage. And I was just like, oh, no way, it can't be that bad when we've seen really good benchmarks for the 8-core. And essentially, this 6-core is just an 8-core with 2 cores turned off. You know, that's what it's going to be. So it's like, there's no way it can be that bad. So anyway, there's been another benchmark run, which I'm glad someone's come out, and this looks a lot more realistic. I mean, as you can see here, it's got the CPU ID string, which again is quite good. Looks real. It's got the boost in base clock speeds there. It's recognizing 6 cores and 12 threads. Blah blah blah. So it all looks really, really good. And it's getting I'm assuming, yeah, this is a multi-thread score. It's getting 1,136 Cinebench points, which is not to be sniffed at if you're going to be doing multi-threaded tasks like video rendering and things like that. Like 1136 is a really respectable score. I think my 6-core at 4.5 gets around 1230. So you don't get a huge bump over this for the increased clock speed, but for me it's worth it because it'll do things a little bit quicker. But yeah, very, very good. And now we're just going to go down and look at that in comparison to other chipsets. So here, this is an Antex Cinebench R15 database. You can go and look this up. It's on an Antex website. And they've just slotted in this Ryzen benchmark to see where it would sit. So to be expected, there it is, 95 watts. The wattage is impressive on this thing when you consider all the Broadwell E's and Haswell E chips it's up against are all like over 100 watts. So it's quite impressive to be on 14 nanometers and under 100 watt TDP. And it's sitting there at 259 compared to 434 when the 6800K was released. And it's, yeah, I don't know, 4 points higher. 4 points, what's that? It's probably not very much. I would say 4 points is within the kind of level of variance, the error of the test, if you like. I would say they're equivalent. And the 6850K coming out on top, I'm assuming that's to do with like faster cache, I would have thought. 6900K, well above it. Interesting that the 6900K at stock, I would assume, although the stock will be turboing. I'm not sure if the turbo is enabled on this 1600X for this test. And they don't actually go into whether the turbo is enabled or not. Nah, it doesn't. So, but it's lagging behind by a considerable amount. That 6900K, it's lagging behind by 400 points, which is a lot. I know it's got an extra 2 cores, but that still seems quite a lot. I'm not sure about the scaling of Cinebench, if it's linear or not in terms of core count. But good to see that this 6-core is bang with the 2 6-core, bang in the middle of the 2 6-cores that Intel are offering, and cheaper than both of them by a considerable amount. Yep. Ah, here we go. Alright, okay, yeah. So it was running 100 megahertz below the Intel Broadwell E6 core. Right, okay, that makes sense because it's 3.4. Yeah, so the IPC for this chip is looking really good. It looks real. It looks like the IPC is there for Ryzen. And then they move on to the 8-core chip. Yeah, these are Firestrike marks. So there we go. Let's see what it's getting. This is the one here, 1600X. So yeah, 3D Mark Firestrike. It's there or thereabouts. It's actually 6850K, 6800K at 3.4, 3.3. Yeah, it's on a par with Intel's 6-core Broadwell E offerings, which is really, really impressive. Single thread, do they have it? Turbo stable, that's not what I'm after. No, that's a different chip from what I can see. Hard to tell. 69. Yeah, this is the 8-core chip. This is not. I don't know why they've included that. Yeah, that's whole 8-core bench. That's a bit misleading, really. And so what they talk about here is more 6-core 12-thread stuff. Alright, so 6 cores 12 threads from 229 to 259. So it's kind of hitting the mid-range. It's going after that i5 lower end i7 market. To be honest, it looks like if you're not a complete Intel fanboy, I don't see why you wouldn't choose this over an i5 or a kind of lower end or even an upper end i7. I cannot wait for us to get some actual proper benchmarks from people out there like Linus or Jay's 2 Cents or Tech City, people like that. I want to see those real life benchmarks like Gamers Nexus take this AMD chipset and just absolutely push it to the max to see what we're really gonna get. That would be fantastic, and that's what we need. Because to be honest, guys, I'm kind of getting bored every week of going through the same thing. I mean, AMD have managed this perfectly. They've managed these leaks perfectly. I mean, I don't believe that for any minute any of these leaks are not planned. Especially the Cinebench leak. There was a really dodgy Cinebench leak for this 6-core chip came out a few days ago, and almost immediately there was what you would call a very legitimate leaked benchmark that came out, which was quite interesting. So I think AMD are on the ball with the media at the moment, although I have to admit, like everything else, I'm kind of getting bored. It's dragged on for a long time. I really hope they don't drag Vega on. I'm actually hoping they're going to bring the launch of Vega up, because I don't know if I can wait till like June or July. Was it second half 2017? Seems a long time to wait with AMD having nothing new to the GPU market, but that's an aside anyway. So yeah. So there's your 1600X, which you can overclock and has a slightly higher boost clock, blah blah blah. And there you go, there's the overclocking thing. XFR Unlimited Turbo, 3.7 gigahertz plus, dependent on your cooling. I think most people out there are probably running an aftermarket cooling solution, whether it be air or water. So I would assume this 6-core chip is going to go well into the excess of 4 gigahertz. I'd be surprised if it topped out at 4. I'm kind of hoping maybe 4.5 would be realistic, considering I can get my 6800K to 4.5. It'd be disappointing if it didn't get that far. And now we're just going down to single core performance, CPU-Z. So again, the R5 1600X, this 6-core chip, is doing really well in single core performance. I mean, it lags behind something like a 6700K, which I would expect because that's a 4-core chip. This is a 6-core chip. You're always going to pay that penalty for having more cores on the silicon. It's a larger piece of silicon, etc., etc. But when you look at it in comparison to Broadwell E, it looks really good. I mean, it's the single core performance in this thing is outperforming the 6800K by around about 100 points. 6900K is getting outperformed. 6850K is getting outperformed. So yeah, it's impressive performance from this 6-core chip, if you can believe it. This does look slightly more realistic to me than a lot of the other stuff. Multi-core. So again, this multi-core slide really for me kind of solidifies that this is a real leak. You can see all these i7s with a higher core count, or getting much better scores than the 6-core. Although the CPU multi-core performance scores, the Ryzen chips outperforming the two from Intel considerably by 2,000 points from the 6800K and just under 2,000 from the 6850. So again, really impressive. So now if you continue down this article, it talks about 4-core 8 threads from 199 to 175. That is amazing. If the performance is there for this, that is the death bell. I mean, an unlocked 4-core 8-thread CPU for $200. I mean, how are Intel going to answer that? They've already said, and it already looks like they're not going to be lowering their pricing. They're launching a different SKU in Kaby Lake. I can't remember what it is now. To take on all of this one chip. It's like, come on. I don't think that's realistic. I mean, if I was a gamer out there at the moment, like a Core i5 buyer, I would look at this kind of 4-core 4-thread CPU, $149. I'd say, wow, it's really good. But then I would look at this 4 cores 8 threads for $200. I'd be like, that's what I'm going for. That is what I want. 4 cores 8 threads, bang for buck, really good CPU with a B3. What was it? B350M, I think, is like the kind of mid-range mainstream motherboards on the AM4 platform. I can't remember what they are now, but they offer overclocking and they're cheaper than the top end ones, so that's what I would go for. That's probably what I would go for when I get that the R5 1600X. I'm definitely buying one of those 6-core chips. So yeah, guys, there we go. It looks really, really good. Oh yeah, and here we go. AM4 B350, that's it. X370, A320, yeah. Okay. We're actually going to go and talk about this now. So we're going to talk about AM4, details of AM4 release for Asus Gigabyte MSI, blah, blah, blah. So this is like 5 hours ago this was released, and this makes sense with the launch of the chip actually coming up, that manufacturers are releasing details. So looking good. A lot of really nice motherboards here actually. Dual channel memory, is it? It's, I don't know. Does it bother me? It does a bit. If I was going to go and buy an 8-core CPU, I would probably want quad channel memory just so I could really like take advantage, like you can on X99 or X299. You can take advantage of having a lot more memory. Although I'm not sure what the memory controller is like on Ryzen, so it just might not do it. Maybe the microcode update or something, but I'd be surprised if AMD don't launch a quad memory channel AM4 motherboard. I think they'd be missing a trick in terms of those prosumers or people like me who are doing content creation, etc., etc. If you work from home, I just find having tons of memory is really, really handy for anything like this. So anyway, guys, let's go through this. So this is what I was talking about. X370, top of the line, blah, 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 overclocking, yes. Crossfire, yes. Now, what I would probably go for is this B350, which is the kind of mainstream boards. There's some really nice looking B350 boards. SATA, yes. PCIe, yes. Overclocking, yes. Importantly, it supports overclocking. Doesn't support SLI. I don't really mind about that. I think once I come up with a new solution for this machine, I don't think I'm going to run SLI any longer. I've been a fan of SLI for a long time, but more and more games just aren't supporting it. And to be honest, it's a pain in the ass. It's like, I'm running 2 graphics cards. I would rather run 1. So once I update this machine, I think, unless something amazing comes out, I can't see me going back to multi-GPU setup. I mean, it looks really cool. I wish you could see it, but it does look cool. It's like, yeah, 2 graphics cards in your machine looks awesome. But a pain. So that doesn't put me off at all. A320 I would probably stay away from. It's probably going to be kind of bare bones. And then again, you've got the problem of like low-end motherboard, low-end VRM, etc., etc. So yeah, B350 in one of those 6 cores. I mean, you know, if I can pay £200 for that 6 core, maybe £110 for a B350, that's really good value for under £400. Well, and then I'd chuck some memory in there, take up to £400. Really good platform for £400. 6-core CPU, overclocking motherboard, and say 16 gigs of RAM. That would be a really, really good platform. And then it just goes on to more things, all this kind of stuff. Ryzen 7th gen. It's like, okay, I'm not bothered about this so much. Enthusiast level, this is interesting because it gives you a breakdown of what you actually get and what it supports. So for me, what am I bothered about? It's fine. So USB 3.1, 3.1 Gen 1 and Gen 2 and 2. It's 2 plus 6 plus 6, 2 plus 2 plus 2. So you're getting some extra Gen 1 USB 3.1 ports. Don't mind about that. SATA, I'm assuming this is SATA 3. You're getting 4 on the enthusiast level and 2 on the mainstream. That could be an issue for me. I would like more SATA ports. SATA Express, 2 on each. Not bothered about that. PCIe lanes, so these are Gen 2. So it's not talking about Gen 3. Okay, that's interesting. So 8 Gen 2 lanes on the enthusiast level and 6 on the mainstream level. That's okay. RAID support, again, this is interesting to me. So 0, 1 and 10, 0, 1 and 10. I'm assuming that's supported on the chipset. Doesn't bother me because I've got a RAID controller anyway. But that's nice to see that it's supported on all platforms, even the A320. It's essential. That's a really low-end bargain basement board and supporting RAID. That's kind of interesting. So the top two, the ones I'm interested in, the B350 and the X370, both support overclocking. I like this as well with AMD. I like what they've done, whereas unlike Intel, all their chips are unlocked. So you don't have to buy an unlocked chip. You don't have to worry about what SKU you're buying to overclock. But what you do worry about is what platform, what chipset you're buying on your motherboard. And I think that makes more sense, because if you're going to buy an unlocked chip, say you buy an unlocked Intel chip, you're going to buy a higher end motherboard anyway. So you're not, I don't think AMD are squeezing anyone out of the market or squeezing any money out of the market by doing that. I think it's quite clever. I think what they're saying is, you can buy any one of our chips at this price. We're not going to charge you any more for overclocking, but what we are going to do is make you pick a more suitable motherboard platform for that CPU. Because you could buy that 8-core chip if you're happy with with the performance, and you could just stick it in one of these A320s and that'll be fine. It'll run it, no problem. So interesting from AMD, quite like that. So let's get away from AMD a little bit. So yeah, just some more news about Game Developer Conference. So Game Developer Conference coming up in 2nd of March 2017, where we're pretty sure, yeah, AMD are going to make their announcement about Ryzen. Oh, it's 28th February, sorry. Yeah, this is where they talk about join us, and we'll start talking about this kind of stuff here. NVIDIA also are going to be there. GeForce GTX Gaming. Then backdrop, Field TV. Okay. So yeah, interesting stuff. So I'm going to watch this. I'm going to watch this game development conference on live. It's in San Francisco. Be interesting to hear what AMD are saying just before their official launch of Ryzen. That along with the NDA being lifted on Ryzen, and we'll see some real benchmarking coming out from some tech tubers, etc., etc. I assume AMD will have a full live benchmarking setup going on with their top of the line stuff, and they'll go into Ryzen a bit more, etc., and pricing. Everything will become official. So that's it, guys. That's really it. Thanks for watching. Interesting stuff. I can't wait for Ryzen to launch, so hopefully we'll have something else to talk about other than what if. So we might have some real numbers to talk about. I'll have a Ryzen machine as well. And then I suppose at the end, a bit of a begging part to the live stream. So I'm currently putting together a few projects. I'm having trouble finding bits and bobs like CPUs, motherboards, older stuff, memory. If any of you guys have got anything, and I'm not saying send it to me for free, but if anyone out there has got stuff they're not using, get in touch with me either in a comment, or you can email me at backofbeyondtech@gmail.com. I'm quite happy to pay for stuff. I'm quite happy to pay postage for stuff, etc., etc. But yeah, really just looking for some sort of older CPUs, Intel. I don't want any AMD stuff from the old days. And old sort of x58 motherboards are really hard to come across. If anyone's got one that's working, happy to pay for it. I'd rather buy it directly from someone out there in the community than go through a website or something like that. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the chat. I hope you're psyched for Ryzen like I am. It probably sounds like I'm not, but it feels like I've been reporting on this since I started the channel almost a year ago now, 9 months ago. So it'd be good to be talking about something else, to be honest. And that's it. Have a great week, guys. I will be uploading videos this week as soon as I get my issue with Adobe sorted out, okay? So take it easy and peace out for now. Bye.